Oh my, look what happened. So, in the process of playing, sometimes you will break a hair, and I don't know if you can see that, but there's a hair that broke. So, because there's a mortise inside of the bow here and here, where all of these little horse hairs are tied with a luthier knot to hold them together, and then a plug that keeps them in place, we don't want to yank them out, because if you yank them out, you can loosen this mortise and make it so that it comes out and you have to pay to get them rehaired. So if you don't have clippers on you, the hair is pretty easy to break, but just don't yank on it. Just pinch it with your finger and then do the same thing up here. Just kind of pinch it off. If you have clippers, you can clip them too, but just don't pull them. Housekeeping on bow maintenance. My bow is tight, and we are on to page 17. And page 17 starts, in this book, for the remainder of the pieces, you are always going to play third finger. If you play an open string first finger and then the next finger will always be third. But I want you to learn these notes. So on lightly row, we have two parts again. Most things from here forward will be in duet form as well. So we have open A, then we have two F sharps. They are F sharps because over here, when you come to your key signature, you have an F sharp on the F line, and on the C space, you have a C sharp. So let's see, are there any C's in lightly row? No, there isn't. Well, why does it have to have the two sharps? There was a piece before this that was actually in G, but it didn't have any F sharps in it, so we just left the key signature off to just not confuse people. But it starts on A, but it ends on D. And if you look at the bottom part, however, the duet part, we do have some C's here on the bottom part, and those are sharp. But your melody line just doesn't have a C in it. If it did, it would be sharp. And then I want you to go down the page, because we're going to do both of these pages today. This is Are You Sleeping? This is going to be a fun, because we'll do it as a round, which will be really fun. So we have F sharp and C sharp again, so we're in the key of D. Starts on D, ends on D. And you do have F sharps and no C sharps on the top part, but if you look, oh no, and the bottom part won't either because it's a round. So a round is, it's like, and you all have probably done rounds before, and you've probably done rounds with Are You Sleeping? One group comes in, then 2 or 4 or 3 measures later, another group comes in and plays the same thing. And then a third group can come in and play the same thing. So on Are You Sleeping, you can actually get like 3 groups going, playing the same music, but because you're 2 measures off, or how many ever measures off from each other, it sounds like this lovely harmony that's coming out of it. Pocketbill Canon is a very famous round. There's another name for it, and I wish in my head right now that I could remember the other name. It's not a round, but if it comes to me, I'll mention it later. I don't like being a senior citizen, just so you know. I can't remember words as well as I used to. There's another interesting thing that we're learning here on Brother John. There's a symbol down here at the last line that's called a fermata. A fermata is a hold, and you play that note an extra 2 counts if you're playing by yourself. So it's that little thing right there. and it's down here in your music. I'm trying to get that angle so you always can see that. That just means that you're going to hold it. If you're in a group and there's a conductor, you look for the conductor's cutoff. If you're by yourself, just hold it for 2 extra beats. And let's go ahead and do lightly row. So it starts on A. So we'll start right here. I won't use the metronome until we get to the duet recording, which will be the next video actually. But A to F sharp, quarter, quarter, half, quarter, quarter, half. Let's see how you do with it. Let's see how this foundation is coming along. So 1, 2, 3, go. Then open D, E, F sharp, 3rd finger G, then A. Then we're going to go up bow. 3, 4, measure 6, 2, 3, 4, open D, F sharp, 3rd finger A. Now see how you did with that first part. If you're hesitating or the bow sounds scratchy, this is where all of your individual practice comes in, separate from what we're doing on the video lessons. If you can't quite get it, I want you to check your position. It might be that your bow, this is where I find that students they'll come back to a lesson and they'll be holding their bow like this, or they'll be holding it like this. And they've gone away from all of that lovely work that we did to get your bow nice and round with all your joints round. Once you start doing this kind of stuff, this is the sound I get. And that's with me really trying to play nicely. So if you're getting some crunches and some strange squeaks out of your instrument, check this bow hand, because 90% of the time it is your bow hand. I did rosin my bow again today after I think we did like 5 videos yesterday, so it was a couple hours of playing, so I definitely had to rosin my bow when we started today. But if you're getting some strange sounds, the other thing, this is a housekeeping thing as well. I bet I don't have one here. But rosin will build up a little bit on your strings. And you'll want to have some kind of a cloth. So if you look at my fingers, see how they have white powder on them? That can also cause some scratchiness on your strings. So you want to have some kind of cotton cloth or something to wipe them off with. I'm allergic to rosin, so I'm going to actually just give my face a little bit of a wipe in case it powdered up. Because I don't want to be coughing right now. So go ahead and review that, so that you've got that first section really, really super well done. And then if we look at measure 13, same as measure 1. This one's the same as that one. And then you have a little bit of a different ending. So very simple notes, very simple melody line. If you've got your foundation going, you should be able to play this one okay. Let's start at measure 6, 7, 8, 9. So this is measure 9, where that E is. 1, so first finger E, ready, play. Then D, F sharp, A. So that is lightly row. You know all these notes, you've learned them now. We've just got to get it in a piece. So go ahead and practice that one. I did have somebody ask about this, the vibrato in your hand. I forget that I'm doing it and it just kind of happens. I will not teach vibrato until we get to that point where you have no tapes and you're shifting without tapes. As soon as you get that technique and you're able to be in tune, then vibrato can be a good enhancer. Vibrato changes the pitch of the note ever so slightly, and if you're out of tune, you can hide an intonation issue within vibrato if you're not careful. And I always wait to teach that until students have no tapes and they're shifting just from first to second position. Once you've got that started, then vibrato is put in. So ignore that I do that. I'm trying not to do it in the videos. Sometimes I just don't pay attention. All right, let's go on to Are You Sleeping? If you look at the notes, D, E, F sharp, D. Oh, look at this, super easy. F sharp, G, A. And then if we look at measure, counting the measures 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, measure 5, we have eighth notes in measure 5 and eighth notes in measure 6. And they're eighth notes with a beam. So those are the ones that are twice as fast as a quarter note. So in measure 5 and measure 6, you're going to go 1, te, 2, te, 3, 4. Da, 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 da. And then look at this measure is exactly the same. So once you've learned this measure, you've also learned this measure. The cool thing about Are You Sleeping is if you have a friend who can play in D major, either if it's on piano, if they know these notes on piano, or another cello player, or if you have a violin player that can play just D, E, F sharp, D, you can play this along with a violinist as well, or a violist too. So these are the only notes that we're using, and then you go D, A, D, half note, D, A, D, half note. Then if you look at this, if it's a round, this starts over again and you play the same thing over again. Then you play it over again, and then there's just a little bit of ending on the last two measures. This one, if you've got your foundation work down really well, should be easy to play. I want you to remember that you're doing these eighth notes with a shorter, you don't want to try to do an eighth note with a really long bow, you want to do it with a shorter bow. So if you've got about this much bow going on a quarter note, do about half of that. And because your arm has to go twice as fast as well when you're doing those. And you have to coordinate your arm change with your fingers changing, which can be tricky. So we'll work on that a little bit. So let's do the first 1, 2, 3, 4 measures. Say the notes out loud. I want you to be able to know where the notes are and the name of the notes. 1, 2, 3, go. D, D, E, F sharp, D, F sharp, G, A, hold, F sharp, G, A. Now short. So that A, B. So sometimes you'll get a sound that is like an extra sound in there because your finger isn't changing at the same time as your bow changes. So you can kind of make sure that goes at the same time and it's not. Make sure you're not getting like an extra little note in there. Bow changes at the same time that your finger lifts off the string, so you have. And you can kind of nudge your bow when you're first starting out with this. slow down so it's nice and clean. So if you're ever going along and you're getting and it sounds like that, it's because your finger isn't changing at the same time as your bow is. So make sure that you just kind of slow it down and make sure it doesn't have to be in rhythm. So they have to change together at the same time. Easier to do when you're doing an exercise and you're really focused, but now you've got several things you're trying to focus on. So make sure if you hear some strange blurby sounds or extra sounds in your music that you're fixing that and being aware of how to fix it. So those two measures, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we're going to go to measure 7. You have 2 measures of open D, first finger on the G, open D, first finger on the G, open D. Then I want you to leave that first finger down if you can. So so that's Are You Sleeping? Because we're getting up to 16 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and call that a good practice time for today. And the next video will be page 17 that talks about time signatures.